Dear Venerable Sisters and Brothers, Dhamma friends, today also it is the time for day's Dhamma talk. May everyone settle down and consent with 3 times. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tassa bhagavatu arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavatu arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavatu arahato samma sambuddhassa. Vedana bhikkhave anatta tasma vedana abādhāya sangvati nachalabbati vedanāya evaṁ me vedana hotu evaṁ me vedana ma ahosīti. Dear Dhamma friends, today is our 6th day. This is the 6th talk, and all these so far based upon the particular one discourse delivered by the Buddha and found in the Samyutta Nikaya, known as Pancavaggiya Sutta or Ananta Lakkana Sutta, and they are basically the Buddha taking 5 aggregates one by one, presenting they as non-self or characteristic of non-self. So at the beginning, the form, the materiality, the very body or living and non-living forms. And the second, as everyone knows, it is the feelings, and that comes under the non-material or nama, and that is also treated in the same way, boldly present, Vedana Anatta, it is non-governable, and it is not having any characters of soul. So far for the last 2 days, with the light of the information on the form, we try to understand the transient nature of the feelings, and if someone is not really or sharply observing, be mindful or diligent, there is a lot of misunderstanding, misconception can take place. So, to have a close, mindful, diligent, vigilant observation, one must already have preparedness or some kind of theory knowledge and certain amount of deductive knowledge. Then only one can justify. One has to look feelings with that way, and for that the basic understanding, basic theoretical knowledge is there. And even someone is thorough with this basic understanding, if he or she is not possessing good power of mindfulness and the concentration and certain amount of experience, that theory also cannot be applied in a constructive way, in a pragmatic way. So whenever someone is having the both and understanding under one's very nose itself is a reciprocal thing. It's a very quite a coincidence. When that happens, it is giving kind of electric feelings and a new way or seen through one's own feelings. So therefore, if someone is having that kind of a knowledge and little bit of experience, justification or one's own experience, then the Buddha showing us and inviting us to make use that understanding basically to restrain one's own faculties, and they are onward, easy one to be contented with what is available rather than searching for this or on the pleasure principle. So therefore, when and where someone is careful towards one's own feelings, he or she can put that or reinvest back into one's own moral integrity moral responsibility or restraining of faculties. In other words, if someone is lack of this theoretical understanding and the practical application of the very theory understanding on the feelings, he or she is so vulnerable to the feelings with respect to his or her moral integrity or moral restrainment. So therefore, today I thought of using the argument or the theory what we developed to reinvest back into one's own moral restrainment. For that, easily one can quote the last particular discourse you find in the Majjhima Nikaya, known as Indriya Bhavana Sutta. It's a very dramatically applying this knowledge to one's own restrainment of the faculties. And if I am to give the narration, while the Buddha and the Venerable Ananda was there, as one disciple of Parasarya came to the Buddha for the courtesy call, and then the Buddha also inviting him and asking, in your discipline, in your dispensation, did your teacher also recommend or prescribe the restrainment of faculties for you recluse, for you mendicants? Then he says, definitely yes. He also really appreciating, if you wish to have a development or improvement or maturity, you must have your own restrainment of faculties. That is something what the external normal people also expect, as well as for your progress, that is necessary. Then the Buddha says, having said so, would you mind to share with us the way that your teacher is prescribing the restraining of faculties? Then he says, as far as the eyes are there and external visual objects are there, whenever the visual object happens, accordingly desire or hatred can happen. So therefore, since your faculties are so vulnerable and unpredictable, therefore you must not look at the visual objects which is provoking, which is taking you for a ride. And exactly the way there are sounds and noises, when you are listening, your mind get either desirable feeling or undesirable feeling. So therefore you must not listen to that kind of sounds or smells, same story, tastes and tactile sensations and things appearing on the mind. And therefore all the faculties you must restrain in order to not to get sensuous impingements. Then the immediate response from the Buddha was, if that is the case, the blind people must be already arahant, because they are not getting any impingement, so they must be clear in their mind. Or deaf people, that also must be fully arahant, because they are not getting any sounds. So that make that particular person withdraw his theory, and then the Buddha make a general statement, Venerable Ananda, this is what the Parasarya is prescribing and recommending for his disciples, and if it is so, all the disabled people must have their own advantage. But very rarely, very occasionally only, the fully enlightened being, the Buddha, rising on the world, and he himself also prescribing kind of restrainment of faculties, and that is not, it is not easy to criticize like that. So it is very profound. And Venerable Ananda immediately plead and pay respect to the Buddha and ask, please, out of compassion, teach us what is the prescription, what is the recommendation of the fully enlightened being. And then the Buddha says, if someone wish to have one's own restrainment regarding faculties, he also chakkuna rupan disva uppajjati manapang, uppajjati amanapang, uppajjati manapamanapang. For example, he himself see a visual object, or visual object come and avenued or impinge upon his sensitivity of the eye. And accordingly, desire arises, or undesirable feeling, or no pleasure, no pain kind of feeling can happen. His responsibility, the person who genuinely wish to restrain their faculties, his responsibility is to be aware. Now the mind stream of consciousness is with either desire or painful feeling, maybe no pain, no pleasure. And if he is diligent, if he is not negligent to note it, when and where he note his own desire or his own undesirable feeling or neutral feeling, he try to contemplate, this is something arisen out of causes. This is very gross. This is the cause and effect relationship. But if I can maintain my stream of conscious calm and pure, serene, and in the upekha, in the equanimity, that is better. Now my mind stream of consciousness is to take a trend towards the desirability or undesirability. So therefore, such a person not going to deal with the visual object, which is externally coming and impinging. Instead, he is so sharp to see his own response, his own reaction, and his own way, accept it, whether it's a desirable or undesirable way. And therefore, he's immediately come inwardly and deal with already arisen desire or undesirable feeling or neutral feeling. And he is ready to accept that is already happened due to a reaction of two things. That is to say, your eye sensitivity and the external sense visual impingement. And when they happen, when they two come together, the spark happens. That spark is the desire. That spark may be undesirable feeling or neutral feeling. So this arisen desirability came out of causes. Two causes are your sensitivity of the eye and the external sensuous, the visual object. So he immediately tried to tackle with this arisen desire or undesirable feeling. And there his diligence is very important, because if he become negligent, he would have taken for a ride with this desire or undesirable feeling, then he would have moved, he would have taken away. But even not leaving such a small fraction of time, as and when it arises, if he or she can see already arisen desire or undesirable feeling, that is what does it mean by development of diligence. That is what does it mean by the mindfulness or vigilance. For that he take care. This is the way the practitioner looking at the visual objects as far as the eye is concerned. Exactly the same thing whenever a sound come and strike on your eardrum, arising of a desire or undesirable feeling or neutral feeling is inevitable. Someone can, for one's own advantage, one can think, whenever the sound come and striking, even to the Buddha, the desire arises. Undesire arises and neutral feeling arises. His task is to nip it at the bud level. tackle it as and when it arises. But if you are not trained enough, your mind, to put it in another way, if you can't if you can't slice the time in very thin layers, you will be delayed to understand it, so that you will be moved, you will be behave according to the desire reason, according to the desire, undesirable feeling reason, then you will be taken for a ride, you will be carried away. So therefore, as and when the sound or visual object come and strike, it is the machine, it is the body knowledge, it is the way it is being trained, desire or undesirable feeling happen. But the person really, genuinely practicing towards the restrainment of faculties, never complain this external impingement, either sound or visual object. Instead, he try to see dependent origination of the desire, of the undesirable feeling, of the no pain, no pleasure kind of neutral feeling. And he tried to analyze, earlier the better, etan santang, etan panitang upekha. This is already arisen is dependent arising, and it's very gross. Gross means that it would have taken you for a wrong direction off the track, and it is cause and effect relationship. Instead, if I can maintain the stream of consciousness in the neutral feeling or equanimity, that is good. So that is how he is training. So if someone to take a genuine effort for that kind of thing, partly he has to have kind of understanding the feelings, the way that it is happening, and monitoring our life, our value judgments, our desire and undesirability is completely programmed. But it must not be so if you are aware of it. So that is what you must have a certain amount of theory understanding. It is conditioned. Whenever the good visual object happens, the desire arises. Whenever the good sound arises, the desire arises. So, unless otherwise you listen to the Dhamma, you take it for granted that is the way. But the Buddha says there are a lot of other options. Even the desirable thing happen, you can either keep it neutral, or you can understand the already arisen desire, and you can understand the danger of arising desire. So these three options, one has to develop, one has to be endowed with theory knowledge first, and second, he or she would have experience once or twice, then more and more you to go deep into that, and when and where the sensuous impingements come and strike on your sensitivity of eye, ear, nose, tongue and the body, each time he or she is not complaining about what is coming and striking. Instead, take care, vigilance and diligence, how my response, my desire, my undesirable feeling happens. That is due to my own conditioning. That is the way my likings and dislikings are working. That is the way my personality is working. And it's a very good chance for someone to understand who am I with respect to feelings. But if you are not aware, there are no other options, you will never try, you will think I am succumbed to that situation, that bad omen came and my mind became depressed and disappointed, that a nice thing happened, auspicious thing, and I am being elated. I have no other way. That is the way uninstructed commoner. But the instructed noble disciple understand the human mind having lot of the window outings. One thing is, if you, instead of tackling the external sense of impingement, if you sharp enough, if your insight is ready to see and tackle the arising desire or undesirable feeling to see, you are better off. If you are delayed, if you are negligent, of course the feeling will take the upper hand. And therefore, if someone is going to practice in this kind of a radical way, he or she will not much complaining about what are the external impingements. Instead, try to see the rut, the mechanical way you react, mechanical way you develop the desire, undesirable feeling or neutral feeling. So whenever you are going to see that, it is completely radical kind of approach. So based upon that, the Buddha, he says, Nate kama yani chitrani loke sankapparago purisassa kamo. He makes a general statement. The desire for attachment is not due to the verified, variegated veracity of the world. It is due to your likings and disliking. It is not due to your attitude. The world becomes so diversified. Titteva kamani tateva loke atetta dhiro vineti chanda. Therefore, the real, genuine person never tackle with the external world to make it disciplined, make it decent, make it restrained. Instead, he or she mind his own business, minding that my concepts, my likings and dislikings, my personality is the what make this is desire, this is not. So this is a very good opening, one to test again and again. So therefore, there's two stories. One thing is very ancient, that what the Buddha came out with, and later they developed a parallel story in the Zen tradition. The Buddha story, one day he's asking from the gathering, oh monks, have you seen Charana Chitra? Charana Chitra means kind of a movie. Existed at that time. Maybe some puppet show or kind of a thing, very attractive. So, unluckily, all the monks says, I know it. So, therefore, there is no explanation in the commentary. What does it mean by Charana Chitra? And it is parallelism, we can say Chalana Chitra. Chalana Chitra is movie. Nowadays, we can see the movie. So, at that time, there was no movie. Maybe a puppet show, some kind of thing. So when the monk says yes, then the Buddha is telling, oh monks, that more than this movie, more than this Charana Chitra, your mind is more colorful, not the very particular thing. Because anything come into your stream of consciousness is almost at least selected by your mind. So therefore many things are presented, but your selection is decided by your likings and dislikes. So therefore, charana chittang eva chittatarang. More than these movies, your mind is so colorful. So therefore, you instead of looking at these movies, you must see the mind which is looking movies. And then you can see a specific, very dynamic, dramatic scene, what is happening in your mind. So therefore, people, to these economic theories and political and all the kind of thing, they try to get more and more visual objects, more and more sounds, more and more smells, more and more tastes, more and more luxurious things, and pet ideas, and they think they are rich. They have enough kind of thing. But the Buddha says, your mind is so more rich, more varietal, but if you are depending on only the external thing, you will never open the door to see the varietal, the multifaceted shape of your mind. So therefore, leaving aside what is external thing, observe what is happening whenever you see whenever you hear, whenever you smell, taste and touch. So exactly the same thing presented in a more aesthetic way in the Zen tradition, where the master was very tough, and therefore there was a disciple, he find very difficult to sit in the group sitting. So even he knows his meditation is not good. So what he do is he escape from the group sitting and climb the nearby mountain and look at the sunset. This is so colorful. He found that what a nonsense go there and cross-legged sitting and fighting for the mindfulness and the concentration. It is so absorbing. He was so contented, he can't prevent, he come and report to the master. He says, Master, you don't believe, today I got the concentration. I got what to expect because my mind was so absorbed. I see the panoramic view of the sunset. I can't explain the colors. Then immediately the master slapped the fellow and tell, you don't know, your mind is more colorful than that. So exactly the thing the Buddha has mentioned, unless otherwise your mind is colorful, you can't see external colors. Because even if it is available, your likings and disliking, your desirability is the one ultimately matters. So therefore, once you understand the transient nature of the feelings, you must, whenever in meditation, in sitting or walking or in day-to-day activities, whenever they come into your stream of consciousness, you must immediately try to see the impact, the feeling you get it, the reaction your mind is making, instead of looking at the external impingements. Then you can understand how is the different coloration happen in your stream of consciousness, and instead of worrying and shaping the outside world, you can be aware of the arising of desirable feeling, undesirable feeling, and no pain, no pleasure kind of a neutral feeling. And therefore the Buddha says, once you develop this kind of a restrainment of your faculties, whenever you become a seeker means attained person, then you restrain the faculties quite somewhat in a different way. So he also, due to his early practice of noting, seeing, hearing, smelling, touching and other Dhamma objects, as and when it happens, how his feelings are changing. So when and where happen, early he used to say, this is originated dependently, and it is gross, and it is the reciprocal each other, so therefore better to be in the neutral feeling. But once you become attained, or once you gain certain amount of fruitions, the Buddha then says, when and where the desire arises, when and where undesirable feeling happens, he develop kind of a mentality, attiyati harayati jagucchuti. He feel, now my mind, my stream of consciousness defiled. My stream of consciousness is disturbed. My stream of consciousness is in a friction. It was without a friction, now due to the desire and undesirable feeling, it came, and ultimately he feel humiliated. He feel this is something to be get rid of. It is as if he see something filthy. So that is the way the seeker. Seeker means that he has already achieved certain amount of achievements, but when and where the mind become colored out of desire or undesirable feeling, immediately, whether it is desirable or undesirable, both he considers a kind of a friction, kind of a humiliation, and kind of ashamed that I have now succumbed to defilement. So more and more he restrained himself to not to confront that kind of a situation. Under such circumstances, it is natural for him to creep into the forest. When you go to the forest, there is no such big desirable things, big undesirable thing, because when you go inside the forest, all the 8 directions you find exactly the same. That is why you get lost. You lose the directions when you go into the forest, unless otherwise you are skillful, because everywhere you find the trees. No desire happen. Or you go under a tree, or you go under a solitude place. So otherwise he knows his, due to interaction with different sights, sounds, smells, tastes and comfort, the mind becomes so tiring, it becomes so friction, becomes so humiliated, he always try to keep his own dwelling in a medium way. And once he go up to the final liberation, becoming an arahant, then he experience yet it another way towards the feeling. Once he fully enlightened and fully trained his mind, the Buddha says, even if he see a filthy thing, a dirty thing, he know how to see the beauty of it. He know how to look at it in the neutral way, and he know it is the dirty way. And even if he see a beautiful thing, he can see the camouflage. He can see the danger of it. He can see the neutral. So therefore, whatever the external thing, he is not moved by. He has three options for each and every scenery, whether it is a neutral one, or it is a bad feeling, unauspicious one, or good thing. So therefore, he is independent or liberated, emancipated from the external view. That is the maximum of the restraining of faculties, because he is master on his feelings. As and when it arises, he know how to nip it at the bud level, soon it arises. So anything you can see as auspicious or unauspicious or neutral. So in our commentaries, it says that Venerable Nagasamala, one of the monk attended to Buddha together with Venerable Ananta, and of course they are ordained together, and once in a way he also became. And one day, while he is on a Pinpath tour, or alms rounds, he has seen a damsel, a dancing woman, after alcohol, dancing on the path with music and everything. People are right around looking at, onlookers are there. So on the way he is coming on Pindapatha, soon he see it as a trap of the Mara. So immediately he see how much it can poison him if he is unrestrained. But instead what happened was, his restrainment came in rescue of him, and he see through it, and he became an arahant while on the road. Otherwise, it is something a monk should not look at. That is as Nachcha Gita Vadita Visuka Dassana Mala Gandha Vilepana Dharana Mandana Vibhusanathana Veramani Sikkhapadam Samadhyami. That is, you are taking a vow not to look at that kind of thing, because it is naturally attracting you and distracting you. But Venerable Nagasamala took it as an object of meditation. He see the set danger, set trap on the road, unless otherwise you are not restraining your faculty. So by properly putting the Dhamma or theory and applying the mindfulness in the correct way, that very snare, that very trap, make an object of meditation. He declared, due to my steadfast mindfulness, vigilance, I see through it, no danger. And yet another story, it says, elderly monk go to the morning meal with a small samanera. And the householder served a very cold hilibat, in Sinhala we call hilbat, last night cooked meal, and served. And while eating, the senior monk came to know, in the cold, rainy day, very difficult to eat this because it's very cold. And immediately he instructed the younger Samanera, dear young Samanera, don't burn your tongue. That was he mentioned. And the Sama is strike that I am eating a very cold yesterday meal, but my teacher is asking, don't burn your tongue. And he told, if I am to develop a defilement, this bloody fellow offered me all cold thing, and how can I eat like? He has to go to hell, and then he has to suffer the boiling lava put into his mouth, and then he has to burn his tongue. But if he can restrain himself now, he has nothing to go to the hell, and there is no burning of the tongue. So immediately came what is the message the teacher given, and he was contemplative in eating. At the end of the eating, he became an arahant, it seems. This very thing can lead to so much of defilements unless otherwise you restrain yourself. That is what the teacher says, don't burn your tongue. But he got the message, and therefore, if someone is mastering, skillful in one's own feelings, you can understand if the remote controller is going to control your mind by visual objects, by sounds, by smells, by taste, by comfort, and your pet ideas, you are just a puppet. You are just a slave. So you must take the control into one's hand and don't let the external impingements to send you mad. Don't give the remote control to the external impingement. Instead, try to understand when and where the impingement happens, what is one's own reaction, one's own response, just like a stitching machine. When the upper needle is going down, how the needle down there catching and putting the hook. And if the bobbin is free of threads, whatever the impingement happen, it won't make the stitch. So therefore, that is the way liberation the Buddha is presenting as far as the feelings are concerned. So these stories, this kind of how the meditator works, how the person who has few Maggapala Jnana is behaving, how the full-fledged person behaving, is going to give a fair picture for someone to justify why should I restrain my faculties. Otherwise, no one will take it is as because anyone rationally think, I am so lucky, I have very healthy eyes, I am lucky because I have so much of good visual objects, why not entertain? Because I earned this eye due to the past good merits. I earned these good visions due to your past merits, why should not? So if he is going to put it like that, definitely you are perpetuating on the pleasure principle and try to increase the pleasurable feelings, and you don't know each and every pleasurable feeling. When it is going, when it is ceasing off, it is leaving a certain amount of unpleasurable backlash, unpleasurable residues, and you will never see because your mind is conditioned by the undermining tendency of the desire for desirable feeling. So ultimately you don't know, there's a kind of a hatred, there's a kind of a negative emotions are pent up inside. By even if you are looking at the desirable thing, unless otherwise you know the mechanism, you don't know how that happens. And unlucky enough, if you are to see unforeseeable, undesirable object, you will be ever hating the object or the person who created that object, telling that he is really an enemy. That is why he is creating this kind of hateful things, and I have to either kill him or I have to commit suicide. That is the way it happens. But if you do not believe that, instead you see, whatever you see, that you are. That is what the quantum physics, they say, what you see, that you are. Because in the world, there are huge array of visual objects. What you look at is decided by your own karmic forces, your own likings and disliking, your own personality. So therefore, my way of presenting is, if you are going to a buffet diet, all the kind of foods are there. All the colors are there. All the smells are there. All the tastes are there. And presentation is so nice, it's complete. But what you select is according to your choice. You are the one selecting, and what you select is what you are going to taste. What you are tasting is what you are going to swallow. That is the what going to digest. That is the what going to give the either nutriments or poison. So table is the same. When the two people goes, they never eat the same recipe. They are selecting according to their own likings and disliking. Supposing some person taken oily thing, and ultimately it happened him to develop high blood pressure, and he's going to lodge a complaint against the person who served the buffet diet, telling that he served oily thing, and ultimately I developed my blood pressure, and therefore he is the very person who is putting me into the blood pressure, because you being blood pressure, you must restrain your faculties, it is a buffet. Instead you eat it and complaining, indicates how nicely we are finding external causes to complain. We are all masters. We do exactly the same mistake according to our liking and disliking, according to our karmic forces, and some or the other find external sources to say they are the culprit, making me unhappy, making undesirable, and you try to convince others also, ultimately it becomes frivolous talks. You never accept that it is happening due to the karmic forces or due to your likings and disliking or due to your personality traits. Therefore, you will never understand who you are, what are your likings and disliking, how these karmic forces are working. And in the neurology also, it says even if you see a good visual object, when it is transmitting to the visual part of your brain, it has to go through number of neurons. Each and every junction, it is producing the neurological neurotransmitter chemical, and at the one end, the other end, according to the chemical, they develop kind of a electromagnetic field, and then transfer it to the other nerve, and then from that electromagnetic power, they produce, the other end produce its own electrotransmitter chemical, and that goes to the next one, and each and every junction, there's a kind of a relay. And that can be conditioned completely by your moods, by your sense, by your personality traits. Whatever you see, but is going to your brain, decoded in such a way that indicates who you are. So therefore, if two people looking at one thing, never they see exactly the same. Venerable Katakurunti Jnananda, he says, when we are, for example, two are sitting and meditating under a tree, two different trees, one person see a drop of water at the end of the blade, glass of blade, and he see 7 colors through that drop of water, and he admire the rainbow. He's asking other person to look at it, and he sees he can't see the rainbow, because he is looking from different angle. So the separation of colors never happen. I can see, definitely it is striking. But the other person sitting close by, if I ask, see how nice rainbow there, he would say, are you mad? It's just a drop of water. But your angle ready to make separation of colors, other person won't. So you say, ask that person to come and sit in your place, then he will see, but you can't see. So this is exactly what you see that you are. So when the Buddha was explaining it, 2,600 years, everyone thought this is talking something mystic, something very profound. They never tried, unless otherwise those meritorious people managed to understand the Buddha. But now, in the quantum physics, they also, according to the stories, they found this phenomena 200 years ago, but they scared to publish it because no one would not understand in the proper way. But 60, 70 years ago, they published with the help of the other knowledges. Now it has become a accepted fact. The Schrodinger wavelength will not collapse unless otherwise a consciousness come and strike it. And once it collapses, then it become a matter, either visual or sound or smell or taste, whatever may be. If there is no interference of your consciousness, they just behave like a wave. Energy wave, it never collapses into matter. The collapsing very wave into matter is due to your looking. If you are not looking, it is not happening. So that is what the Buddha mentioned. Yena yenai manyati tato tang hoti anyata. Those who have the desire, those who have the conceit, those who have the egocentric idea, whatever he see through his desire. He see through his conceit. He see through his ego. So therefore, what he sees, that he is. But very difficult unless we openly discuss these matters together with our mindfulness and the diligence, of course with the help of the teaching of the Buddha, then you see one breath to other in-breath, not equal. At the beginning, when you are try to catch the in-breath, out-breath, for an example, in the interviews, you can ask, how long can you be with the in-breath and out-breath? If you are successful, you may say, I can see continuously 10 cycles, or continuously 10 seconds, continuously 10 minutes. And if you ask, what are the differences from first to the second to the third, then you, if your mindfulness is not sharp, you say, equally all are the same. I observe 10 minutes, but exactly the same breath. But if you ask that particular person, at least, can't you separate it from the in-breath to out-breath? At the beginning, won't accept even it as a challenge. Accept it as a technique. Accept it as a something to do. And if you manage to convince, and if he's looking at, to see the discrimination between the in-breath and out-breath, hardly he can see. There's a kind of differences. So with that, promoting that, appreciating that, say, whenever you see the difference as and when the in-breath and out-breath happen, try to see continuously with the sharpness, with the focused mind, and so that you will see there are some changes from in-breath to in-breath, out-breath to out-breath. That is what the Buddha says, Digam va asasanto digam asasamiti pajanati, digam va pasasanto digam pasasamiti pajanati. At a time you can see breath is long, in-breath is long, out-breath is long. If you have to look at the continuously, you will say, again the same observed in-breath becomes shorter. Rasang va asasanto, rasang asasamiti pajanati. And then if someone is adjusting one's observing capacity to see these changes from in-breath to in-breath, he has to look still very closely. And then the Buddha says, Sabbakaya patisangvedi asasisamiti sikkati, Sabbakaya patisangvedi asasisamiti sikkati, pasasisamiti sikkati. That means, according to the present day commentary, it says, not only you see the difference between the in-breath and out-breath, not only you see the difference between the in-breath to in-breath, you are so sharp to see the beginning of in-breath versus the middle of the in-breath versus the end of the in-breath. So you see the whole breath body, and then you can see so much of changes. And to that to happen, not only your wish, not only your desire won't happen, your mindfulness also must undergo a change. It must observe very closely, very immediately, continuously, and with so much of enthusiasm. That penetration, the yogi, the beginner, understand as the changes of the object. But definitely it is changing your mind as well as changing your mindfulness. That means the object and the mind become so close, they come each other to the same electromagnetic field, ultimately they hug each other. The mind as well as the object, mind and the object, when they come each other, your feelings are changing in such a way, you feel frills and thrills. You feel so much of detail in there, you can't separate it out, the object and the observer, observing mind. So ultimately, gathering the momentum, without much of the effort, you can see each and every time, whether it is the beginning part of the in-breath, middle part of the in-breath, or end of the part of the in-breath, each and every time, there is a combination of earth element, the air element, heat element and water element. At the beginning, you may hardly see only one element, heat, cold, or hardness and softness, or movement and steadiness. But if you're sharp enough to see, you can see each and every moment, different combination, but only three characters in the drama. They are changing in the same stage, and if you observe it, they have no any pattern. They are so transient, you won't believe unless otherwise you look at it, you don't see it. Untrained mind, look at the breath. Long time, but never see through it. But if you understand this, more and more you to observe, more and more you to be sharp, mindful and vigilant, more and more the object become immediate, you can see through it, and when you are seeing through, the materiality and mentality come each other, hugging each other, as if you are getting an absorption into the first jhana. This is completely a vipassana story, but the functionally, mind feel as if you are absorbed in the samatha conventional jhana, and therefore you can see many details, many facets within the object, and you can be so much cut off from your hearing, other pains, thinking, and so can absorb into the particular object. So sometimes you forget about your body. Sometimes you forget about your time dimension. You don't know how long have you been in there. So much of the feelings are changing. So therefore, even though the Buddha in this particular discourse, dealing one by one each other on for the theoretical clarity, this is materiality and this is feeling. Later we will go into the perception also. They are happening in the multidimensional way. When the materiality is becoming transient, definitely the feelings also. Without that it cannot happen. So therefore more and more you go there, you lose your orientation. You lose your ego. You lose your conceit. You lose your desirability to that particular object, because that particular object becomes the common representation of the whole universe. More you zoom in, more you become zoom out. When you go deep into the in-breath and out-breath, you can see you are fully harnessed, dissolved into the whole universe. You can't see in and out different. This is ego, this is non-ego, this is good, this is bad, this is auspicious, this is non-auspicious, nothing. As far as this duality, the measurement, the conceit is there, you will never go into it. You will resist it. Rather, that is what it happens. You develop kind of fear. You develop kind of phobia. That is the way your ego, that is the way your the conceit, that's the way your desire happen. So, as I mentioned, repeatedly mentioned, you will get each and every time a fresh chance to go further in, sacrificing your egoistic idea, sacrificing your conceit, sacrificing your judgmental idea, this is good, this is bad, this is desirable. When you go deep and deeper, what happens is you lose your orientation, you can't understand, because that space and time as a dimension start to dissolve off. So therefore, more and more you training it, you will go to the unknown area in the feeling, so much so, you feel like there is no boundary. This is ego, this is non-ego. Everything is feelings are happening. And that is the place, as I try to mention, many people assume extrasensory perceptions. Many persons assume that I can hear far away things, I can see far away things, and I can feel far away things. But they don't understand this is just a glimpse of the beauty of the mind. But if they're going to grasp it, I am developing extrasensory perception, I can feel the past, I can project future, and all the kind of thing, they all become yet another trap for that particular narrow-minded person, still through the feelings, still through the attachment. So therefore, when and where you go into this unknown area, you must have a reinforced kind of faith on the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, and don't let your senses, don't let your faculties to lose its situation. Keep the integrity based upon your morality and doing the noble quest, go deeper and deeper with a non-judgmental way, without assuming, without reacting. So therefore, your yesterday's experience is the only refuge for today's adventure. That is the way you go deeper and deeper into there. Otherwise, as I mentioned, that kind of special knowledges, special lightness, a special rapture, a special serenity, all these things are happening for the first time. When it is happening, very dramatic. So you must understand they are just road signs, but nothing to stop and worship. And if you can keep on practicing, then only you can go into the subtle layers. But commentators really accept each and everyone fall into one or the other pitfalls. It is not a crime, it is happening, but you have to understand there are some, but don't let it happen again and again. If it is happening, I would accuse you, you are not meditating for Nibbana, you are meditating for some other meaningless objectives. That is why you get trapped. If you are keeping the object very refined, if you are keeping the object very genuine, you will feel ashamed. You will feel humiliated when and where you get trapped. That is what the Buddha mentioned for the Sekapuggala. Seka means achieve people. They also fallen into trap, but they feel ashamed. I am being trapped into the internal, the inwardly or outwardly. Inwardly means your good qualities of your meditation. Due to the good qualities, you become elated. Due to good qualities, you get conceited. And when and where happen, you feel ashamed, you feel humiliated, you feel like in a friction. But if you are going to cheat other people, do the meditation for the fashion, and at that kind of thing, you will brag, telling that I achieved this and this and that. Ultimately, you don't know, you are trapping. And ultimately, it will go outwardly also. There are a lot of friction can happen. So therefore, at that level, the atta, or this egoistic idea, working in a very subtle way. Not like with the gross feeling with the visual object, the physical visual object, or sounds, smell, touch. This is something your mind made, your own baby. And there's a lot of chances for you to get attracted into that. So therefore you have to expect whenever you go deep into the object, the material object, and then there is a kind of a metamorphosis, evolution in your feelings, and ultimately it goes to very subtle places, and sometimes it is negative, sometimes it is positive. Whatever it may be, you must not get moved by it. You must understand it is a good sign if you can tackle well. That is how it is being presented as vidasana upaklesha, kind of defilements. and it is of course going to agitate your mind. Of course it is going to excitements, going to give some kind of perplexity. So there it is tested whether you have equipoised mind or equanimity, or sometimes it is called tadi. Tadi means profundity. Whether it's a gain or lost, you try to keep the integrity. Whether it's a pleasurable or painful, you try to be equanimous. That is how you can cut through when these vidasana upakleshas are there. So the Buddha is known as Tathagata. Tathagata means such person. He is the first one, even though good experiences, good knowledges happen, he never stopped at that level. He cut through into the deep layers, knowing this, what we are talking is almost at the obsessional level of defilements. Underneath only you have the undermining tendencies. So if you are get trapped and stop your journey at the obsessional level, your qualification to see the undermining tendencies will be covered. So you have to master it again and again, and when you go deep only, you can see how this the so-called friendly thoughts, or appear to be very benevolent thoughts, or camouflaging thoughts are always in your mind, and it is in a very subtle way pull you off from the present moment. Pull you off from the here now I am situation. It make dream worlds, it make lot of stories, daydreaming and fantasizing. So they are always ready when the mind become very serene, calm and achieved or positive kind of thinking. So there are only these undermining tendencies to come and start storytelling. So you have to be prepared, and when that happens, you see they appear like your friends. They appear like very beneficial, very social, very Samaritan, but managing enough to pull you off from the present moment. So if you wish to go into that level, you must be prepared, you must be reinforced, you must be galvanized towards this defilement, so-called vipassana upakleshas. And the moment you try to understand this kind of the tricky nature in the feelings, I hope, I wish you will understand the person who has already seen it, and how much these feelings are tricky, how much these feelings are creating a humiliation for the known person, not for the unknown person, how much they are creating a friction for the known person, and other people are really entertaining it. Under such circumstances, if you have to organize your life, organize your friends, organize your meals, organize your posture, organize your surrounding, you have a better chances or better least frictional path, and you can see like-minded people there. They are really maximizing their solitude, always try to keep the isolation, even though other people are chasing behind the dramatic things and colorful things and kind of thing. He never contradict them. He never going to correct them. He just say, okay, if it is good, you may go there, but peace, leave me in peace. And that kind of people don't think it was only available at the time of the Buddha. It's an unexpected promotion of people, mature people, even in the present world, but you don't know how to pick them, because you don't have experience. You have been always chased by the beautiful sceneries, beautiful sounds and beautiful smells, so therefore you will be hooked up with the sensuous beings. But the person who understood and he organizing his life to the solitude, to the isolation, that particular person, people will never contradict with that kind of a sensuous beings, but he always try his best to solitude, and there is a kind of a magnetizing power among that kind of people. That is called mindful societies. So, whether irrespective of whether language or sex or any religious, this now in the world, the mindful people are in a kind of a net. Some says the universal consciousness is selecting some people and putting them into the pool, and ultimately you feel at home because these kind of people having simple thinking, the simple living and high thinking, and even in the consumerized societies you find them. And when I go out for talks and meditation retreats, I was amazed to see so much of proportion of people, if we really explain them, they catch them. They really magnetize it. And they develop the art not to show others, but to maintain one's integrity, maintain one's solitude, maintain one's freedom, openness, and they continue to be exemplified or role models for this vipassana practice. But sorry to tell you, religion is the main culprit for that, main enemy for that. Religious won't allow you to be solitude, be isolated. Your so-called faithful, the religious circle will pull you out of this solitude, pull you out of this thing, and therefore you have to have a special raincoat not to get wet. And it is available. It is available. That is why the Buddha says, if you practice mindfulness, that is the safeguard. It has, the manifestation of mindfulness is protection. And it is called that the Arakka Pachupattana. Arakka Pachupattana means more and more you keep your practice here now I am, or diligent. There's a kind of vibration happening. You feel at home, you feel protected, and whenever you feel like-minded people, and you feel again that is being reinforced, and at any cost or any lost, they will go pull more and more towards the people, those who are in the restraining of faculties, and more and more towards the mindfulness, and irrespective of all the other creeds and kind of thing, you can have it. But the danger, but the criticism, but the friction mainly come from the so-called religious people. Very difficult. So therefore, don't antagonize them. Leave them in their place, and as and when possible you go and practice with them or allocate your time, but always you have to understand that what you understood as this pleasure and pain is a friction. Pleasure and pain is a humiliation. Pleasure and pain is something to get rid of. Then only you can be in the no pain, no pleasure situation. If you wish to go and sit on the seesaw at the edge, the fluctuation is too much. So that is what the people are running. Soon go there and get the last point of the seesaw. And that is what the Buddha says to be avoided. That is the two extreme. What happens if you come to the middle? The same wave, but the less amplitude. So therefore the Buddha says, you have to replace the painful feeling with the pleasurable feeling. And whenever you mastering and be aware of the pleasurable feeling, now you have to replace it with the no pain, no pleasure situation. No pleasure, no pain feeling. So now you have given up the pain with the help of pleasure, and you are ready to go give up the pleasure with the help of no pain, no pleasure situation. Then the Buddha says, you are ready to see your foolishness, your idiotness, your ignorance, because no pain, no pleasure is resting upon your avijja. Then only you can see, with respect to the other human beings, where am I? What am I? Where is the orientation? And then, without any hesitation, the Buddha says, understanding very ignorant is the biggest knowledge in the world. So therefore, ignorance is resting upon the wisdom. So very difficult to understand how the ignorance, how the avidya resting upon the vidya. Avidya means ignorance, vidya means the understanding. So you have to understanding your weakness, understanding your foolishness, understanding your this thing is the prime task of you. When it is happening, that is called vidya, that is called the enlightenment, that is called the knowledge. So giving that Nibbana sermons, Katakunde Venerable Jnanananda says, people think they are polar apart. The vidya and avidya, or ignorance and the knowledge. But the Buddha says it is resting one upon the other. An example he gave was that when you get a lotus flower or lotus leaf, if you put a drop of water, of course it is holding, but it knows smearing. When they shaken, you can see they are independent. But they are each other touched. So likewise, ignorance and the knowledge are so close friends. You can only understand knowledge through the ignorance. So you have to quantify, you have to understand one by one your own the foolishness, your own ignorance, your own darkness, your own the avidya. So the sensuous world is always you are escaping from that. You never face it. But mind you, it is not possible with this Citizen Jones thought, Citizen Jones kind of mental atmosphere. First of all, you have to understand the suffering, unpleasurable situation, and you must be tactful to replace it with the pleasure. And then you must be tactful to replace the pleasure with the help of no pain, no pleasure. And then you have to understand now you are ready to see your own subconscious, your own dark side of your mind, or in the physics we can say dark matter. And understanding the dark matter only you can see dark energy. Then you can see the whole picture. And then only you can say you are living. So that is the way it is happening through feelings. So it is well explained in the Salayatana Vibhanga Sutta and more detailed. Buddha has painted 36 combinations and replacing one after the other and going the most dramatic and most radical thing is the day you understand the biggest wisdom in you is understanding your own weakness, your own ignorance, your own darkness. So as far as you are escaping from that, it is very difficult. And the only possible way is vipassana or insight meditation, but vipassana also must be backed by all the other generosity, the moral restrainment, concentration restrainment, and with this all the qualification you have to go and practice this wisdom restrainment, and there you must be ready to undergo this kind of a radical change. If it is not within 7 years, at least 6 years, or at least at last, with the 7 days, the mind has no any friction. Once you recognize the formula, once you recognize the correct view, once you recognize the radical reflection, once you recognize the correct direction, and then it is cut into. So therefore, some people sees or try to understand these feelings are a shortcut to cut through than the materiality. That is why Vedananupassana they keep first, and sometimes whole meditation retreat is on the Vedananupassana. But to be on the safe side, easily one can say the ABCD method is good. So you have to start with the materiality. With that you develop good qualities like mindfulness and the concentration, and then let the phenomena to go from materiality to the non-material sphere, starting from the pain. Definitely the feeling is very deep, very profound. If you are really armed with, reinforced with the mindfulness and the concentration which develop through the materiality, and then you find it is very juicy, it is very sappy. But if you have to really understand the misconception you had so far, and you must be ready to experiment with your life, and then these feelings will cut through in a shorter way, and you will appreciate the Buddha, you will appreciate the Dhamma, and you will appreciate the people, those who are practicing, more and more you go in deeper. So I hope today's Dhamma talk also will help you to appreciate more the triple gems, as well as your own moral restrainment, and you will cut through as much as possible within this retreat. Thank you very much for listening.